Hey there! Today, we're going to talk about the different ways you can run your applications in the cloud. Think of it like a journey, a spectrum that starts with the raw power and total control of virtual machines and goes all the way to the super hands-off convenience of serverless computing. Let's dive in.
Okay, so if you've ever been in the trenches managing your own physical servers, you know the pain, right? The cost, the complexity, finding the physical space, not to mention the late nights, the constant worry about buying, maintaining, and upgrading all that gear. It's a massive distraction from what you're actually trying to build.
And that's exactly the problem the cloud was born to solve. But here's the thing. The cloud isn't just one solution. It's a whole spectrum of choices. The way to think about it is as a journey where with each step we take, we hand over a little more of that underlying messy complexity to the cloud provider. That way, we can just focus on building.
But hold on. Why even bother with this move in the first place? Before we jump into the different levels of cloud compute, let's just quickly touch on the core reasons that are pushing everyone in this direction.
It all comes down to some really compelling benefits. Instead of dropping a ton of cash on hardware up front, you just pay for what you use. It's a game changer. You get this incredible ability to scale up for a huge traffic spike and then scale right back down. And all of this is backed by the world-class reliability and security of a global infrastructure. At the end of the day, it's about letting your team focus on what really matters, innovating, not racking servers.
So the magic word that makes all of this work, it's abstraction. Just think of it like a convenience dial. And as we go through these different levels today, just imagine we're slowly turning that dial up, hiding more and more of the nitty-gritty details so you can just focus on your code.
All right, let's start our journey at level 1. This is the ground floor of the cloud, where you have the most control and the least amount of that abstraction we just talked about. We're talking about virtual machines.
So, the tech behind VMs is called virtualization. Basically, it lets you take one massive, powerful physical server and slice it up into a bunch of smaller, completely separate virtual computers. Each one gets its own dedicated chunk of the hardware, which is a super efficient way to use those physical resources.
And here's the key takeaway for VMs. You get maximum control. It's pretty much like having your own physical server, but it's just living in someone else's giant data center. You pick the operating system, you set up the network, you manage the whole shebang. This is awesome for moving older applications to the cloud. But, and this is a big but, all that control has a cost. Each VM is dragging along a full operating system, which makes them kind of slow and clunky. That clunkiness, that inefficiency of running a whole OS for every single little app, that's exactly what pushed us to the next level on our journey. Think of it this way. If VMs virtualize the hardware, containers are a step smarter. They virtualize the operating system itself.
Okay, so let's break this down, because it's a really important difference. A VM has to lug around an entire operating system. We're talking gigabytes in size, and they can take minutes, yes, minutes to start up. A container, though, it's super lightweight because it shares the operating system of the machine it's running on. That means it can spin up in seconds. It is a massive, massive leap in efficiency.
So naturally, this incredible efficiency meant containers just exploded in popularity. But then you have a new problem, right? How do you manage thousands or even millions of these things? And that's where an orchestrator like Kubernetes enters the picture. You can think of it as the traffic cop or maybe the conductor of an orchestra for all your containers, making sure they all work together, scaling them up and down, and healing them if they fail.
And this isn't just theory. Let's look at a real-world example. A health tech startup called Ubie used a managed Kubernetes service to automate all their infrastructure. The result? They slashed their infrastructure costs by 20%. I mean, for a startup, that is huge. But even better than the money they saved, it meant their developers could stop worrying about managing servers and actually focus on building their core AI product.
Okay, so we virtualize the hardware with VMs, then we virtualize the OS with containers. For our final stop, we're going to crank that abstraction dial all the way to max and ask a really wild question. What if you could just forget about servers entirely?
Welcome to the world of serverless. Now, the name is a little misleading, let's be honest. Of course, there are still servers. The whole internet runs on servers. The difference, and it's a huge one, is that you don't have to deal with them. You don't see them, you don't manage them, you don't even think about them. The cloud provider handles everything. All you do is provide the code.
For a developer, this is just so simple. You just write a little snippet of code, a function. Then you hook it up to some kind of trigger or event. Say someone uploads a photo to your app, and that's it. The cloud platform handles everything else. It wakes up, runs your code, and goes back to sleep when it's done.
You manage nothing but the function itself.
The advantages here are pretty incredible. Your operations work, it basically evaporates. Scaling is automatic and can handle just about anything you throw it at. And the best part? You're only billed for the tiny little slivers of time your code is actually running. We're talking milliseconds. Now, what's the catch? Well, you do give up a lot of control. And you might run into things like cold starts, when a function needs a moment to wake up.
All right, what a journey, right? We've gone all the way from the raw control of VMs through the slick efficiency of containers and landed in the just right code world of serverless. So, that leaves us with the million-dollar question. Which one is right for your project?
And the truth is, there's no single right answer. It's all a balancing act. If you need total control, maybe for an old, cranky legacy app, then VMs are your best friend, but they're not very efficient. Serverless is the polar opposite. Super efficient, super simple, but you hand over almost all the control. And right there in the middle, you have containers and Kubernetes. That's really the sweet spot for a lot of modern apps, giving you a great mix of power and convenience.
You know, the cool thing is, this isn't a one-and-done decision. Companies evolve. Let's look at a company called Mashme.io. Their story is a perfect example of this. They started out with something simple to get off the ground fast. Then, as they grew, they needed more flexibility, so they moved to containers. And finally, when they needed to go global, they embraced Kubernetes to handle that massive scale.
And I love this quote from their founder, Victor, because it cuts right to the heart of why this all matters. See, for them, this wasn't just some abstract tech decision, it was about people. It was about students and teachers. By using a technology like Kubernetes, they could make sure their video conferencing was fast and smooth for every single user, no matter where they were in the world. And in education, that's everything.
So as you think about your next project, try not to ask, what's the best technology? Instead, ask yourself, what's the right trade-off for me? Where on this incredible spectrum, from total control to ultimate convenience, does your project need to be to really succeed?